or a tomato. It is not really evolution in the sense that's taught in our textbooks. What's taught in the textbooks is that these examples of microevolution are somehow proof of the general theory of macroevolution. And that's where I disagree. This is a religion. There is no evidence whatsoever to back this up. Nobody has ever seen a fish turn into an amphibian, or an amphibian to a reptile, or a reptile to a mammal. Nobody's ever observed that. Nobody's ever found a fossil. That is a belief. The fact that we have micro changes, I'll put that in the fact column. Micro variations. You can ask anybody that raises anything for a living. Find some fellow who raises tomatoes for a living and tries to develop hybrids or purebreds. He will tell you, oh yeah, you can get a wide variety. You may get 50 different kinds of tomatoes. But there are limits. And when the further you get from the norm, you may get one desirable trait, but you're going to get some real serious defects. Any cattle breeder will tell you he can get a cow that'll give a lot more milk, but it's not as disease hardy. You know, it succumbs to diseases easily, or some other thing else goes wrong. So that would fit perfectly with the creationist worldview, that God made them after their kind, not species. Each kind of animal was originally created, and there has been variation and diversification within that kind, but nothing changing to a new kind of animal. For instance, dogs. All the different dogs, including the wolf and the coyote and the hyena and the fox, may have had a common ancestor. I wouldn't argue that. But it's still in the dog family. It's still the same kind of animal. You didn't get a new kind of animal out of it. And you may diversify to the point where they are no longer interfertile. Great Dane and a Chihuahua. Though technically they are interfertile, except for mechanical reasons, they could produce a puppy. But they are now classified maybe as a new species, but it's still the same kind of animal. The word species is really where the problem arose back in the 1800s. Darwin could easily see that you could raise pigeons, and he was a great raiser of pigeons. He could easily see that it doesn't take long to develop all kinds of varieties of pigeons. But you're never going to get a crow. And you certainly aren't going to get a mammal or a reptile or a fish out of that pigeon. So all he ever pointed out, and all that has ever been pointed out, is micro changes, which are perfectly compatible with the creationist worldview. There has never been pointed out a macro change. And because of that very thing, there are many now who are going to the punctuated equilibrium theory, like Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge, who are saying, well, we don't see any evidence for evolution, therefore it must have happened rapidly. So you're arguing from the lack of evidence as proof for your theory? Come on, you better try that one more time. That's not going to get past me anyway. Lack of evidence proves it happened? No. To me, that's an indication, hey, maybe the Bible's been right all along. Maybe the only evolution has been micro variation, which really would be a proof of an intelligent creator. If I was going to produce some animals to live in a world that had a variety of climates, I would give that animal an incredible DNA code, so that that animal could produce a variety of babies, and some could survive in any given environment within limits. The rabbit can produce long-haired babies and short-haired babies, and thick fur and short fur, thin fur. Some can survive the hot climates, some can survive the cold climates. And over the last 4,400 years, they have diversified until today. The Alaska rabbits will not interbreed with the Florida rabbits. They cannot. Their breeding cycle is totally different. Now, the Alaska rabbits can breed with the Minnesota rabbits. They're not too far different yet. And the Minnesota rabbits can breed with Florida rabbits, but the two extremes can no longer interbreed. That's not evolution. That's simple variation. It's still the same kind of animal. That's a micro change. It's still a rabbit. You know, stand back and look at it. It is obviously not a turtle. So that's my objection, is that the theory of macroevolution is included in with the textbooks for our junior high and high school kids as if it is a fact, and it is a far cry from a fact. It's a religion. You can take, like the branches on a tree, have the different 250 varieties of dogs probably had a common ancestor, and the ancestor was a dog, right? All the different varieties of cats, you know, Siamese and all those different kinds of cats probably had a common ancestor that was a cat of some kind. From here up, this would be micro changes. This would be observable. Nobody's going to argue with that. From here down, that the dog and the cat had a common ancestor somewhere way back when, that would be macro changes, and that would be part of a faith, a belief, a religion, not observable.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
We don't call macroevolution a religion. It is a scientific theory. So It's not a religion. It's a scientific theory.
Okay. Let me read you a definition of religion. Webster's Second Collegiate Dictionary. Religion, a belief in a divine or superhuman power or powers to be obeyed and worshipped as the creator and ruler of the universe. How did the universe get here? Did this process called evolution bring everything into being that we see today? Is that what created the universe, this process? Well, then that's your God. It is indeed a religion. How did the world get here?
Those are your words. From a scientific standpoint, we would call our interpretation of macroevolution a scientific theory.
Okay.
And not a religion.
I think science and religion ought to be separate, but they are certainly not in our textbooks. To teach kids that the Big Bang is a fact, for instance, and it is taught as a fact in the textbooks. I collect the books. It is taught as a fact. That is wrong. The Big Bang is a far cry from a fact.
It's just taught as a theory.
Not in the books, it's not. I collect them. It may be in college level, you may be getting it. There's several different options, but you should see what's in the junior high book. Boys and girls, 4.6 billion years ago, Earth cooled down from a hot molten mass. But that's not a fact. I mean, were you there? Do you know anybody who was? But I assure you, it is taught as a fact to our younger kids, and I strongly object to that. Yes, sir?
I'm curious about your geological data.
Okay.
For one thing, you talk about the Grand Canyon having originally been a soft sedimentary mass, well, and then forming into, through, I guess, fluvial processes, forming into the canyon that it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, under those circumstances, of course, all of the sediment around it would also have washed at the same level down to the ocean below. Instead of forming rivulets, it would have all formed at the same time. Also, the ocean going from the middle of the continent down towards the ocean basin would cause shell deposits to be found in the middle of, like, the Great Plains right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
They are.
well, not really.
I found 500 shark's teeth in South Dakota in 30 minutes.
Well, okay.
I got them at home.
But why don't we have 100 Grand Canyons all around the world, where these soft sedimentary processes were going on?
Sure. As the biblical interpretation would be, during the course of this flood, which lasted just about a year, a little over a year, 12 months, according to the dates given in the Bible, the flood lasted 12 months. The first 4 or 5 months were probably with slowly rising waters from a variety of tectonic things, and then the last few months with it going down. But it wasn't just rain 40 days, everybody drown, get off the boat and go home. It was not that way at all. It was a year-long flood. During that year-long flood, the earth covered by water would develop many thousands of layers of sediments. It is a fact. The earth has layers. Okay? No question. Now, how do you interpret that? The evolutionist interpretation is each of these layers came at either a different